Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Midday Western U.S. Regional Forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, the big story for this week is going to be the excessive heat we have across parts of California and the desert Southwest. We're going to see those high temperatures pull into the northwest as well before they migrate slowly into the central plains by the time we get to the weekend. But in the near term, some of the big questions that loom is how long is this excessive heat going to last, because we can see a broad sector here where the National Weather Service is already issuing excessive heat warnings. We're going to see triple-digit temperatures lasting for several hours throughout the day, very high evaporation rates as a consequence of that. But to get to that answer to the question is how long does it last, we're going to turn our attention here to the GOES 17 infrared satellite animation here over the last 2 days. And there are two features I want you to watch. First is this right here. Doesn't look like much, does it? But you can see this upper level low sitting and spinning here well off the southwest coast of California. The second feature, of course, is this one. And what's going to happen here is this low pulls here into parts, of the Gulf of Alaska up here toward British Columbia. There is going to be kind of a joining overall with this trough that you see here. Some of the reasons why this is happening are kind of spelled out. One, in the global winds. Two, with some of the behavior right now in the tropics. Three, the Matt-Julian oscillation is in transition. And four, we're seeing some changes in the North Pacific as well. And it's going to allow for the pattern to shift quite a bit when we go from this week into next week. So we better talk about that because it's going to mean a lot for our temperature patterns. So here are those two features. There is the low that we just discussed right here. And here is that broader open wave. And what I want you to watch is where these two features go over the next, let's just call it 5 days or so. Because as we play this forward, we see that by the time we get to middle of this week, Thursday morning, we see our two low pressure cells sitting here. So the heat is still on under this ridge. But as we go from here forward, what we notice is as these two features come together across the west, that's going to help to shove this ridge out into the central plains. It's going to reinforce the trough that is downstream, which is here from the Hudson Bay toward the northeast. And overall, we have three large subtropical high pressure cells, one here, and one there by the time we get into this weekend. Now that pattern tends to stagnate for a little while, and it's one that may be around for a few days into the end of this week and early next week. So what you see is as I play this forward, working our way out to next Tuesday, June 2nd, getting into Wednesday and Thursday, we still see them. See 1, 2, 3. These longer waves do not move fast through the flow. And so we notice that out through the next 10 days, our pattern then shifts across the western part of the United States over toward more general trough, troughiness. I don't know even know if that's a word, but you know what I mean. The flow dips like this. So let's see what that does both in the near term and in the long term. And we're going to start off first by looking at precipitation. So what we're doing here is we're stepping forward in the European model, and we see that through Wednesday, in fact, let's just pause it right about here as we work our way out through Thursday morning. So the next couple of days, widely scattered showers and thunderstorms here in parts of Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. So this is locally maybe some heavier rainfall amounts here, but overall, this is a drier pattern as we move forward. As we get from Thursday into the day on Friday here, and then eventually toward the weekend. Now notice this, at that time period on the weekend, the ridge is now pulling here into the central United States, and those two troughs are coming together. So what you noticed is this right here, which is that first low I was talking about, watch it finally migrate toward the northern California coastline. And so we can see that working the way through Saturday, the current models are bringing together, a push at some moisture here coming on shore. Now, I'm not showing you much precipitation overall, but it is there. It is showing up in the models, and it's showing up in the ensembles as well. As we work our way into Sunday morning, and then eventually into Sunday afternoon and evening, we see that as we work our way out 1 week from now, that trough that's pulling in here, that's really the combination of two features, is now increasing our precipitation chances as we work our way out into the first week of June. So the ridge shifts to the east, bringing the heat into the central plains, into the Corn Belt, while this broader trough pulls into the west and increases our precipitation chances over the weekend and into early next week. Now, with the general trough-like pattern sweeping across this area, I want to tell you a lot of this will likely be thunderstorm activity. So we'll see some locally heavier rainfall amounts as we transition into a more summer-like pattern here. Into week 2 we go. Take a look at this. This is now where we saw that water trough sitting here for a while, and we see generally wetter than average conditions across much of the western United States. Now, the key there is wetter than average. Notice the Columbia Basin, outside of a scattered shower or thunderstorm, we're not going to be seeing much in that area as well. This will probably be the same situation for the Snake River Valley too. And in the Central Valley of California, notice that the anomalies to make it wetter than normal are measured in just a few tenths of an inch. So we're not talking here about deluge of rain unless you're caught underneath one of these thunderstorms as they come through, as the pattern again dips with that trough like this. So overall, remember, wetter than normal during this time of year is not that wet. So what are we going to look at? Well, in the near-term heat, we're going to see extremely high evaporation rates this week as you get down here into the desert southwest, which is expected. But you do notice that in through here in the Central Valley of California, we'll see those rates between 1.5 inches and 2 inches, and same thing for the parts of the Columbia Basin and the Snake River Valley. So this is on the heat that we're dealing with right now. But this map is going to change into week 2 as the pattern cools off a bit. I will say this as well, as the ridge does pull through, we could get some monsoonal type thunderstorm activity here over parts of Arizona as we work our way into this upcoming pattern. So some widely scattered storms that can locally put down some heavier rainfall. But here we go. Let's talk about temperatures as we move to the end of this video. In the day today on Tuesday, you can see easily upper 90s to the lower 100s here, maybe up to 105, 107 degrees as you work your way down the San Joaquin Valley here. Some extremely warm temperatures, much more moderate in the northwest. But as we play this forward, we see that as we get into the day on Wednesday, it's kind of the same thing for the Central Valley. A lot of 100 to 105, 106 degree weather, and then much hotter as you get down here into the southwest. Now I worked on it over the weekend. I've almost got it finished. Some new code, like I told you, that's going to start counting our number of days of heat stress in a different way of looking at this evaporative stress. So I'll get that to you. It's just going to take me a few more days to finalize that code and make sure it's ready for production. But here we go. This is Thursday's departure from normal and high temperatures. That's another hot one. Now watch this. As we go from Thursday into the day on Friday, look at the differences here. Heat's up in the up here in like the Snake River Valley in this part of Oregon, but going from there, that ridge is going to kind of bulldoze its way into Montana. See it there? This is Saturday, getting our way into Sunday, and now look. By the end of this weekend, we're going to be back over toward temperatures that are a few degrees cooler than average across the West Coast. So big changes that are coming here. And this will go all the way out until Monday, and you can see where the ridge is now setting up. So looking beyond that, this is now the 6 to 10 day forecast. We can see return back to normal in the West. In fact, the European during that time period may see, a few degrees cooler than average, which would be quite a change from what we're going to see this week. And now the 11 to 15 day, the European has got a much cooler bias than the GFS, which is again over there on the left. But overall, I think that this cool down is going to be relatively short-lived into the first week of June. And here's one of the reasons why. Just had released last night the newest long-range outlook for the month of June. And overall, the models are favoring a warmer bias for the month across much of the western part of the United States. So despite having the inclusion of this cooler weather in the near term, it suggests that the jet stream is really going to try to retreat north and bring in broad-scale warmth across much of the United States during the month of June. The trick will be to see where that precipitation is, and the model variability has been too high for me to show it to you. One last thing I want to talk about, and that is what I'm going to be covering in tomorrow's long range. Notice this. In our latest ocean temperature anomaly map, there are some interesting symmetries happening in the northern and southern hemisphere as this cooler water, which is part of this La Nina, has pushed into the central Pacific. We need to be talking about this warmth again, and we're going to look at some analog approaches to understanding that as we work on that long range forecast. So look forward to giving you that update tomorrow. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you then, okay? Thank you.